Welcome to the F1 Blog's YouTube channel. Today, we're taking a deep dive into something pretty cool. The race's 2024 F1 driver rankings. Now, this isn't just like, who ended up with the championship trophy at the end. It's a look at the whole season, every part of it. Car performance. Those split-second decisions, that can make or break a race.
Yeah, totally. The race has spent the entire season, trackside. They've been analyzing every practice session, every qualifying lap, and of course, every race. So they've seen it all, the struggles, the little triumphs, the overtakes, the mistakes, everything.
So they're really going beyond just like the points.
Yeah.
What else is factored into these rankings?
Well, they consider the car's performance, of course, because, and even the best driver in the world can't win in a car that's just not competitive. But it's not just that. They also look at qualifying pace, race pace, consistency, errors, a driver's contribution to their team's development, even their ability to handle, the intense pressure of F1.
Okay, so let's start by looking at the drivers who found themselves at the bottom of the rankings. We've got Drawn, Sargent, Zhu, and Stroll. What landed them down there?
Right. Well, it's important to remember that, being at the bottom of this list doesn't necessarily mean a driver had a terrible season. It's all relative, right? Take Dwan, for example. He only had a single race to really prove himself. Hardly enough time to make a real impact.
Yeah, that's right. And someone like Sargent, while he showed, flashes of speed, definitely struggled with consistency throughout the season. Those rookie mistakes can be really costly, especially in such a competitive field.
Yeah, exactly. And then you have drivers like Zhu and Stroll, who, despite their experience, faced challenges with their car's overall performance. That's just the reality of F1 sometimes. Even the most talented drivers can't overcome a car that's just not up to par.
That's a great point. It really highlights how crucial the car is to a driver's success. Speaking of cars, let's move into the midfield, where things get really interesting.
Yeah, the midfield is always a fascinating battleground. Drivers and teams are constantly pushing to break into that top tier. This year was no exception.
Absolutely. We had veterans proving they still have what it takes.
Yeah.
Like Hülkenberg, who was remarkably consistent and scored like the lion's share of Haas's points.
Right. Hülkenberg's performance was a real testament to his experience in racecraft. He might not have been in a car capable of podiums, but he extracted every ounce of performance from it, week in and week out.
Really impressive. Then you have someone like Albon, who had a solid season but couldn't quite replicate those highs of 2023. What do you think was the main factor there?
Well, Albon is undoubtedly a talented driver, but I think his performance dip kind of highlights how much car performance can fluctuate from one year to the next. Williams seemed to take a step back in 2024, and Albon, despite, his best efforts, just couldn't consistently challenge for points. It really underscores the importance of continuous development in F1.
Yeah. Speaking of development, Gasly had a real tale of two halves this season. What changed for him?
Mid-season upgrades. Alpine introduced a significantly revised floor and front wing that dramatically improved their downforce. And after those upgrades, Gasly was a completely different driver, consistently fighting for points, even challenging for podiums sometimes.
It's amazing how much of a difference those technical updates can make. It makes you wonder what might have been if he'd had that upgraded car from the start of the season.
Yeah, it's a fascinating hypothetical, isn't it? Imagine Gasly battling at the front of the grid from the very first race. It certainly would have shaken up the championship fight.
No doubt about it.
Yeah.
Now, let's shift our focus to the top 10, where the battle for supremacy truly heats up.
Right. This is where the margins get incredibly tight, and even the smallest mistakes can have massive consequences. We saw some incredible performances this season, and some really intense rivalries unfold.
Absolutely. And the biggest storyline had to be the battle between Hamilton and Russell. To think that Russell out-qualified Hamilton in every single race is just mind-blowing. What do you think was behind Russell's qualifying dominance?
Well, there are a few theories floating around the paddock. Some believe it was Russell's really aggressive driving style in qualifying. He seemed willing to push the car to its absolute limits, maybe even beyond, to extract every fraction of a second.
Whereas Hamilton, maybe with his years of experience,
Yeah.
was more focused on preserving his car and tires for the race, sacrificing a bit of qualifying pace for a stronger race performance.
Exactly. It's a strategic gamble, and it paid off for Hamilton on many occasions. While Russell may have had the edge on Saturdays, Hamilton often shone on Sundays, showcasing his, racecraft and strategic brilliance.
Yeah, it's fascinating to see how different approaches to qualifying can play out over a race weekend. But speaking of drivers who took a massive step forward this year, let's talk about Lando Norris. He secured his first ever Grand Prix victory, challenged for the championship, and really cemented himself as a top driver in F1.
Yeah. Norris's growth this season was remarkable. He wasn't just quick, he was consistently quick. And he showed incredible race management skills. He even went wheel-to-wheel with Verstappen on several occasions and came out on top.
Wow. But even with all that, he still finished third in the race's rankings. What separated him from the top two?
Well, while Norris was brilliant in many aspects, there were a few areas where he fell slightly short, particularly when it came to those, crucial head-to-head battles, especially against Verstappen.
You're saying he lacked that killer instinct, that ruthlessness you need to consistently beat someone like Verstappen.
Yeah, maybe. There were races, like Austria, for example, where Norris had the pace to win, but couldn't quite close the deal against Verstappen. It seemed like Verstappen always had that extra gear, that willingness to push the limits even further when the pressure was on.
So it sounds like those decisive moments in wheel-to-wheel combat ultimately made the difference in the championship fight.
Absolutely. And that brings us to Charles Leclerc, who secured the second spot in the rankings. This was a season where Leclerc showcased incredible consistency, even though he didn't have a championship-winning car.
Right. Leclerc has always been known for his raw speed, but it seems like this year, it was his ability to avoid mistakes and consistently score points. That really set him apart.
Yeah, precisely. He was a point-scoring machine, finishing in the top 4 more often than not, and minimizing errors. It really showed his maturity as a driver.
It makes you wonder, if Ferrari had given him a car capable of challenging for the title, could he have taken the fight to Verstappen?
It's a tantalizing question. Leclerc's performance this season suggests he's more than ready to challenge for a championship, if he has the car to do it.
Which leads us to the driver who, despite facing challenges of his own, still managed to claim the top spot in the race's rankings. Max Verstappen.
Yeah. Verstappen's championship this year, while not as dominant as some of his previous ones, might be his most impressive yet. Remember, Red Bull didn't have it all their own way this season. They faced some serious challenges, especially from McLaren.
Right. And let's not forget those mid-season struggles Red Bull had with their car's reliability. It wasn't a straightforward walk to the title for Verstappen this time around.
Exactly. And that's what makes this championship so special. Verstappen had to dig deep, adapt to a car that wasn't always the fastest, and fight tooth and nail for every point. It was a true test of his champion's mentality.
So you're saying this wasn't just about raw talent or having the best car. It was about resilience, adaptability, and that unwavering determination to win.
Precisely. Verstappen proved that even when faced with adversity, he has the mental fortitude and driving skills to overcome any obstacle.
It's those intangible qualities that truly separate the great drivers from the good ones. They're not just fast, they're mentally strong, adaptable, and relentless in their pursuit of victory.
Couldn't have said it better myself. But while we focus on the top of the rankings, it's important to acknowledge some of the other compelling storylines that played out this season.
Absolutely. This season was full of individual battles, triumphs, and heartbreaks. Let's delve into some of those stories, starting with Sergio Perez. He signed a new contract with Red Bull, but his performance seemed to take a dip. What do you think happened there? It was a tough year for Perez. He had those early wins and looked really strong, but then the consistency just kind of vanished. The pressure of being Verstappen's teammate, the expectations of Red Bull, it all seemed to weigh on him.
Yeah, it's a prime example of how mental fortitude is just as important as raw talent in Formula One. Perez is a skilled driver, no doubt, but when things started to go wrong, the self-doubt crept in, and it really affected his performance. It's a reminder that even the most experienced drivers can struggle with the mental demands of the sport.
And on the flip side, we saw a rookie who handled the pressure incredibly well, Oscar Piastri. A win in Hungary, consistent points finishes. He really exceeded everyone's expectations.
Piastri's debut season was a revelation. He adapted so quickly to the demands of F1, showed impressive racecraft, and even challenged his highly rated teammate Lando Norris on several occasions. He's definitely one to watch for the future.
Yeah, he is. Speaking of veterans, Fernando Alonso continued to defy expectations. He might not have been a regular podium contender, but he squeezed every bit of performance out of that Aston Martin, often outperforming his teammate and reminding everyone why he's considered one of the greats.
Alonso's relentless determination is truly inspiring. He never gives up, never settles, and always pushes himself and his team to the limit. Even in a car that wasn't a front-runner, he found ways to shine and consistently deliver impressive results.
Amazing. And then there were the mid-season driver changes, which always add a layer of intrigue to the season. Liam Lawson stepping in for Ricciardo had a pretty solid debut, showing he has the potential to be a competitive F1 driver.
Yeah, Lawson's performance definitely caught the eye. He didn't have much time to prepare, but stepped up admirably, scoring points, proving he deserves a shot at a full-time seat in the future.
Absolutely. It's incredible how these rankings have given us a deeper understanding of the drivers, their journeys, and their performances throughout the season. It's not just about who wins, it's about how they win, the challenges they overcome, and the stories they create along the way.
Right. These rankings provide a framework for analysis and debate, encouraging us to look beyond the surface and appreciate the nuances of each driver's performance. They spark conversations and challenge our own perceptions of who truly excelled during the season.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the race's 2024 F1 driver rankings, I have one final question for you, and for everyone watching at home. Who surprised you most this season, and why? Was it a driver who exceeded expectations, a veteran who proved their worth, or perhaps a rookie who burst onto the scene? Share your thoughts in the comments below.
And don't forget to subscribe to the F1 Blog's YouTube channel for more in-depth analysis, engaging discussions, and behind-the-scenes insights from the world of Formula One. We'll be back with more exciting content soon. Until then, keep the racing spirit alive.